Hello and welcome to Pastries for Pets dog treat decorating channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to write on dog treats. Any of these icing and frosting products can be purchased at www.pastriesforpets.com.
I'm going to show you how to do writing with icing, okay? Now, I'm choosing Royal Blend icing today, but this is the same for any of our icing products. And I'm gonna start with the Royal Blend just to kind of show you a good example on how to get the right consistency with any of our icing products. So with the Royal Blend icing, we're gonna go over here where it says details. Now, with the details, it's going to have less water than it is with the flooding. So the details, it says half cup dry mix, which is out of the bag. We all know it's a dry white powder inside the bag. And then it says add 1.5 tablespoons water. So that's what I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna just put this back over here for you. All right, so I'm also gonna add some food coloring, okay? So I'm gonna open that up. And because I'm using dried mix, I use a dry mix half cup measuring cup. Pour the mix in. This is the icing mix that I pre-mixed, or pre-measured, I should say. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of orange food coloring. And it's a powder, so I'm adding it now before I add the water. And before I even add the water, I'm actually gonna mash around any of the little bumps from the food coloring. I'm gonna kind of just squish them around into the dry mix, just so that I don't get a lot of extra bumps when I add the water to it. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to add the water per the directions on the packet. I could sit here for a long time doing this because you could tell I get really meticulous, but I'm sure this is just fine the way it is. But it's good to just crush up any bumps that you have, because if you don't, the colors might be a little bit darker in some places. So then you just kind of stir it up a little bit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, and take this out, is add, it says 1.5 tablespoons water. So I have a tablespoon, I have my water. This is room temperature water, level water. There you go. There's one, and then I don't have a half a tablespoon right now on hand, but I know that 3 teaspoons equal 1 tablespoon. So I'm gonna take 1 teaspoon and a half of a teaspoon, which will equal to half tablespoon. So if you don't have a half tablespoon measuring spoon, now you know you can use 1 teaspoon or 1.5 teaspoons. Just a little trick. Then I'm going to go ahead and mix this up with a spoon. And I'm also continually just kind of pushing in the food color into the water. Okay. So now the reason why I chose to add powdered food coloring is because when you use powdered food coloring or peanut butter or anything like that, or carob with your mix, you're gonna have to add more water, okay? So that's why I chose this example, because this, if you were to see it at home, even if it's just the plain mix, you would know, hey, I need to add a little more water, correct? So that's why we do that. We would rather have you add more water instead of more icing mix if you added too much water on the directions. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna add a teaspoon more water. And I want you to see how quickly it reacts. I think it's gonna need more than a teaspoon of water, but I'm trying to help people understand how much water to add to our icing products. So I'm doing it a little at a time for that purpose. And the reason why I say I think it needs more is because I've worked with this product a lot more than somebody that just started, okay? So I don't want you to use something this thick, but what I want to tell you is the more you use the product, the more you're going to know how much water to add. So right now, I'm going to add 1 more teaspoon. Just some little tricks of the trade for you. And I'm going to stir that up, and that's probably going to do it. Hopefully it's not too watery. It might be. And if it is, you can always add a little more of the powdered mix, okay? So let me just scoop this around. And see how it just forms? There you go. So for the details, you don't want it as thin as we did with the flooding. And I have a feeling this might be a little too thin. So I might add a little more of the icing mix. So hang on a second here. Just want to show you. So when you pick up your spoon, remember the 10 to 12 second rule I taught you? You don't want this to blend in. So if it stays like that, that'll be good, but it's a little bit too thin. I don't know if you can see it blending in, but I do want it a little thicker. And actually, instead of adding more water, I'm gonna try adding more food coloring to see if it thickens it up, because I wouldn't mind it being a little bit of a darker orange. So you can do that as well. And you gotta remember, when you start adding powders to it, it's going to thicken it up. So I just want you to realize that. And the same goes if you're using a liquid food coloring. If you add liquid or gel food coloring, it's gonna make it thinner, right? So it's the opposite. So you wanna make sure you get a good eye for the consistency that you're really looking for. And this is actually kind of a nice consistency right now. So that little bit of powdered food coloring made my icing thicker. And if it made it thinner, I would have to add a little more mix of the icing. So there is no right or wrong. It's just for whatever consistency you're looking for. So it doesn't flood all the way in, so that's a nice consistency. I'm going to go off camera right here and just put it in a bag. And I already put a number 3 decorating tip on my bag, because if you use a number 1 or a number 2 tip, you might run into the problem of it getting stuck. I'll show you, hang on. I'm gonna just take this out of my cup. That's just to hold my bag in place for me. Shake it down a little bit. Okay, so the tip on this is actually a good size hole. A number 2 tip is a smaller hole. A number 1 tip is an extremely small hole. So as the hole gets smaller, any icing might get kind of clogged in the tip. And if that happens to you and you really want to use a smaller tip, you can take a toothpick, or this is a scribe tool, and just poke the top and then just kind of clear it out every once in a while. I don't tend to use the really small tips because I don't like to stop and have to clean out the tip, because it ruins, kind of ruins my consistency of writing. And, you know, that's never that good of a thing to do. So right now what I'm doing is I'm gonna grab a paper towel. Hang on, let me make this so it doesn't get too messy. All right, so I have a paper towel. The reason why I'm grabbing a paper towel is to make sure that my icing consistency is good. I also want to wipe it off. Because when in doubt, you can always take your icing, put it back in the bowl and thicken it up or make it a little thinner, okay? You'll get used to it. I'm just gonna see what happens here, okay? That actually, I'm doing this quick, is a very nice consistency, okay? And it's flowing out of the bag nicely, the whole 9 yards, okay? So it takes a lot of practice. And this, honestly, this white is not completely dry, so it might bleed in, but I don't think it will. Let me just write something easy. Okay? So, as you can see here, oops. Now that I can always take my little scribe tool and connect it. Like I said, everything takes practice. It's a little bit, I picked up some of the white from the background because, like I said, it wasn't completely dry yet. So basically what I do is I actually let my treats dry overnight before I add details to them. But I wanted to do this demonstration for you, so I didn't wait the whole time. But I only let this dry for 15 minutes, and it writes pretty well already. It's not going into itself. And what I mean by that is, like, if your icing is too wet, it kind of melds into the white background. And this one's not doing that. It's doing a very nice job. I'm just trying to fix that white. Don't normally do that because usually my white is completely dry. But there is a little tip on how to get the correct consistency to write on a dog treat using a number 3 sized tip. And this is a Wilton number 3. There's plenty of tips out there. Hope this helps.